One of the things that surprised me in teaching, though I guess I should have thought of it, was that in teaching now high school seniors and, of course, eighth graders, is that they have no memory of 9/11. They're either born too late to have experienced it, or even been alive, or have any memory of it. They were too young to really know what was going on at the time. And for me, I grew up. I was 8 years old at the time of 9/11, and remember that event and it being pretty significant. But almost, I would hazard to say, pretty much almost every child in America and probably every American has heard of the 9/11 attacks, September 11th. This traumatic moment in American history, the greatest terror attack, greatest attack against civilians ever. However, we often assume wrongly that those who are fighting in Afghanistan, which the war was fought there, the justification for the war was that Afghanistan provided a safe haven for and support for Osama bin Laden and the Al Qaeda terrorists who perpetrated 9/11, though other countries could definitely be put in that category as well, even some Western European countries from which the attacks were planned. But anyway, it's assumed that these Afghans know about 9/11 and that they know why their country, their region, their homeland is being invaded by what they see as foreign occupiers, and that they're fighting for the terrorists, and that they're fighting for Al Qaeda. But that's not the truth. They're not necessarily fighting for Al Qaeda, and the Taliban government that did give some support to bin Laden, and we'll look at that another time more specifically, and Al Qaeda, they are fighting there as well, but they're not exactly the same thing as Al Qaeda. The Taliban did not attack US on 9/11. So it's assumed that, yeah, they're over there fighting the terrorists. They're fighting the war on terror. They're fighting these people who are trying to bring back a government who would welcome in Al Qaeda and men like Osama bin Laden and launch attacks against the United States. But this article, which really the title says all, it's down here in the footnotes, says few Afghans know the reason for war. This new study shows. This study came out in 2010 called the Afghanistan Transition Missing Variables report. And here's what this article says. Afghans in two crucial southern provinces are almost completely unaware of the September 11th attacks on the United States and don't know they precipitated the foreign intervention. Now that's very significant. So the people fighting in Afghanistan, who the Americans see as, okay, we're fighting these terrorists, we're fighting the war on terror, fighting these, or at least terrorist supporters, are fighting people who have never heard of 9/11, who don't know about the 9/11 attacks, who live in a primitive life, separated from technology for the most part, separated from news, international news, separated from really leaving many miles from their home, and really even not having the concept of the nation state. They're following more tribal and religious local law, more so than a centralized nation state in Kabul with a president or something like that that the US has tried to establish. And so they don't know why these people who do not speak their language, who do not share their religion, who do not look like them, who do not know their culture, who do not know their traditions, they don't know why they're coming in as foreign occupiers and fighting with them. And so they fight back. And the fighting's very intense. And they'll side with the Taliban or they'll side with whoever. Because imagine, put ourselves in those shoes. Would you fight being in that situation? Even if the other side had a very good reason or a justification, rationalization for being there, they're trying to accomplish a specific goal, but you have no dog in the fight. You have no idea why they're even there. So few Afghans know why foreign troops are even in Afghanistan. These are not the people who perpetrated the 9/11 attacks. These are not the people who supported Al Qaeda. These are not the people who even supported the government of the Taliban who gave some support to Al Qaeda. Yet these are the people that the American government and military are fighting against in Afghanistan. These are the people that they are wasting their time in fighting and trying to capture areas of land and dominate. And these people have no idea about the reason why they're there. And this article speaks even, I didn't have this quote in here, but one of its conclusions is we have to make them know the reason why we're there and communicate that they'll be better off with us than with the Taliban. But the difference is the Taliban, not the US, not the US installed government in Kabul, the Taliban has legitimacy among the people because the people recognize it as sharing their culture. And so they'll side with them if necessary to fight against these foreign occupiers who they see as invading their country, invading their homeland. 92% of the 1,000 Afghan men surveyed in this 2010 report, for this 2010 report, in Helmand and Kandahar, very significant regions in Afghanistan, know nothing about the hijacked airliner attacks on the US in 2001. But that's supposedly the reason we're there, is to fight the people who were responsible for directly or indirectly 9/11. But these people don't even know about 9/11 because they live in a primitive existence. And what ends up happening is the US troops are being made to fight local tribesmen who are landlocked in the middle of nowhere, Afghanistan, who have never even heard of the September 11 attacks that supposedly justify the US being in their country. I mean, is it really just? Is it really a justification to be fighting and killing these people who are so primitive? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but are so primitive, they aren't even aware of the reason the US is there. They didn't do 9/11. They didn't harm Americans, except when Americans invaded their homeland under the direction of the US government. So this is not Al-Qaeda. This adds another layer of complication that these Afghans are not our enemy. They're not, they may be joining with groups we don't like, the Taliban, but it's not because they support the attacks of 9/11 or international terrorism against the US. It's because they're being invaded. I mean, what would you do if we had as Ron Paul has said, a golden rule in foreign policy? We treat others as we would want to be treated. How would we react in such circumstances? Would we fight back? Would we be justified in fighting back? But this is real life for many of these Afghans, fighting people who have invaded for reasons they have no idea why the invasion has happened in the first place.